Hello race fans, Johnny Hobby here to give you a tour of our slot car club track for 2026. Now this is not a complete makeover of our previous track. We did a major change in one section and some other minor changes. And so if you're a regular viewer of the channel, some of the content you might have seen before. I might even recycle some jokes. So I apologize ahead of time for some of the redundancy. However, I'm sure you're going to like some of the changes that we made. Okay, so let's head over to the track. A couple things right away, because I'll probably get asked about it in the comments anyway. The tables cover 180 square feet. That's 5 4-foot by 8-foot tables plus 2 8x1 extensions and a 4x1 extension. And they are 32.5 inches high. The turf on top is just outdoor carpeting from Lowe's. The track is Carrera Digital 124/132. Sometimes there's some confusion because Carrera does not make a 32nd scale track, even though they have 32nd scale cars and sets. Their track is 24 scale, and so both the 32 and 24s run on that track. And now to the layout, and we'll start on the front stretch. Now we call it the front stretch even though it's not really in the front, it's more like the middle. Probably we just call that because that's where our start finish line is, and yes, that's where we start races. And that goes directly into a bank turn here, which pretty much follows one of our recommendations for track design, and that is to have your start run into a low risk element, not some tech section or something. So, this increases your chances of a clean start so it doesn't look like the Supercross.
Anderson had his best start. He's hugging the inside. He's just going to miss out on the whole shot.
And that comes into a 90-degree radius 4 turn, and the radius 4 is the largest turn that Carrera makes. And we really love the large radius turns just because you can carry so much speed through them. Yeah, and if we're running no mag or 24 scale cars, you're pretty much coming around this turn with your back end in the other lane or over on the shoulder. A lot of fun. From there, we climb the overpass to the plateau section here where the pit is, and the pit is on the outside. It's a dual pit, and then the racing line stays on the inside of this turn. And this is modified to be an auto sorter. Basically, the gate here automatically alternates cars between inside and outside lane as they come into the pit. And I do have a video on that modification. Unfortunately, the parts, which is basically an old Pro X pit entry, are getting really hard to find. And of course, as always, we have the moron avoidance system here, just a right to left, in order to switch away from the pit in case some moron's coming out and not paying attention. Now, the drivers, at least for club night, stand along this wall right here, and our pit is on the other side of the table, and it works out really well. For club night, we got guys warming up, practicing, maybe some other guys in the pit here coating their cars or working on their tires or something, and that way when they're on the opposite side, they're not getting in the way or anything. Works out really well. And I really like this turn. It's a variable radius turn. It starts out as a rad 1 and then goes to a rad 2 and then 3 and ultimately to a radius 4. And then that way, as you start to pick up speed coming around and you start to run out of talent, at least the turn's doing you a favor and relaxing. And from there, we come into we call it a switchback. It's basically like a hairpin turn or a 180. That's a radius 1 turn, pretty tight turn. We got our road crew out here and made this realistic because I got one guy working and then 3 guys standing around doing nothing. And then this guy is went into the shitter and he'll probably be in there for like 45 minutes. Now, from there, a long straight, this one about 16 feet. As you can see, we have several of those. It's nice to be able to get the cars up to top speed. And then that brings us over to the Detroit-Windsor tunnel after another switchback. This is an element that we added a few years ago when we were designing the whole layout. We thought it might be dumb, which is exactly why we put it in. And so it goes under the table about 12 feet and then comes up over on that side. And yeah, you do lose sight of your car for, I don't know, a second and a half, something like that. But picking up your car, reacquiring it over there, not as hard as you might think. You really do get a good feel for about when your car is going to come out of there. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to put a technical section on the other end. This is a rad 3 bank turn right here. So yeah, if it does take you an extra split second or two to reacquire your car, at least you got that to help you out. You're not going to end up on the floor or anything. Now, this is the section of the track that's changed a lot. Slower That bank turn used to be 180 degrees, and then it hit 180 one way and then the other way and back to the front stretch. And then what we did, though, was turn this table 90 degrees and then take an extension that was here and put it here. So that bank turn now is only 120 degrees, and that comes into a left-hander that's 270 degrees. I guess you call it like a clover leaf or a quarter of a clover leaf. Also, it gives us a chance to use our shoulders, which we couldn't before because there wasn't enough room where we kind of had the track packed in. And we like to use the shoulders whenever we can, obviously. That way you don't have one lane with a guardrail with an advantage. And also we run the 24 scale cars, and they really benefit from the extra room that the shoulders provide. And that brings us to the most dangerous turn of the entire layout, and that is this 90-degree radius 1 turn. And why so dangerous? I mean, we've got radius 1 turns all over the track, 180 degrees or more, and this one's just 90, and I think that's the problem. It's a mental thing. I think your brain just looks at that and sees that it's only 90 and thinks it's just a little jog in the track and that you can take it faster than you can a regular R1, which you can't. So just got to retrain your brain a little bit, I guess.
All right, Brain. You don't like me and I don't like you. But let's just do this and I can get back to killing you with beer.
And that brings us back to the front stretch, and again, that's not really in the front, where we added a pit stop for a pace car or a safety car. Now, we don't run track calls in our races, and we certainly don't run a safety car out there to pace the field, because otherwise it'd just be out there all the time. However, we've been experimenting with some modified cars and motors, and they pull a lot of amps, a lot of current from a dead stop, and starting 2 or more of those at one time from a dead stop will overload the CU. It'll go into fail-safe mode. So we'll just have a pace car pace the first lap there, and then we can do a rolling start, and then that should be okay for the CU. Another small change that would probably go unnoticed if I didn't mention it, and that is we shifted the tables over a little so that we didn't have these rally columns, which I can't move because they're holding up the house, butted up against the tables and not kind of out in the middle of nowhere, because I could just see someone in a hurry turning around and just whacking one. But we shifted 4 tables, but this one couldn't move because it was already up against the column. Therefore, we had to shift over this part of the track, and taking a couple straights from one side to the other side. And you'd think that you'd notice racing it and have to get used to it, but it's almost like it never happened, which is weird that it didn't feel weird. So anyway, it's all good. Now remember, this spot here used to have an extension on, and this turn was way out here, but now it's in because we had to use that extension somewhere else. And now our cars, especially the 24 scale, the back end is sliding here and getting caught underneath this pinch point right here. It's pretty much taken off the rear wings too. That's when Sifter yells, "Spoiler alert!" Anyway, we could remedy that by taking off the shoulders and putting a guardrail here, but as I was saying before, we really like to be able to use our shoulders. So I think we're going to do instead is just build another extension to put back on here. We can put this turn back where it was before because it wasn't an issue. When cars slid around this turn, they were pretty much squared up before they reached that part of the track. So just a little fix we have to make. We created a problem, but we can fix it. Here's a couple other things I've been experimenting with. You may have noticed these track supports here, and we have these towers from 1 inch to 4 inches in 1/8 inch increments. And so when we want to support the track, find the size we want, print it on the 3D printer, and then we have these clips. You might notice they look like the track connectors, and you just plug these in and slide those into the slots in the side of the track and lock them in, and now you have your track supports. Now this works really well when you've got just the track here to support when you get those plugged in on either end. However, if you got, say, a 4-lane or you've got shoulders, right here, just putting those on the sides, you're going to have a problem with this joint right here because it's not supported. It's going to sag. And therefore, that's where these trusses come in. So instead of using the clips in the towers, you just put the truss in instead, and then that runs underneath all the way across and then supports that joint. And so, yeah, this whole turn here is supported with those tower and truss systems. And then we also have special inserts for other areas of the track where we need some support. So yeah, we've been working on this, trying to make it totally modular so it fits all of our needs, and it's going pretty well. Some of you have run into this where you don't have quite the right track pieces, specifically the shoulders. Like here, for example, in order to complete this, you'd need the shoulders for the pit. And you could leave it like this, but that doesn't really look good. You've got these terminators that you could put on here, but that doesn't look right. Now you can, or you could, use this gaffer's tape. Kind of pricey though, but the texture of it is pretty darn close to the Carrera track. And so that'll help. It's not quite, it doesn't quite blend in perfectly, but it looks better than before. Now I've been experimenting with printing or designing and 3D printing the shoulders, and now the PEI textured plate that I use when I print this face down, the texture from that plate is darn near exactly the same as the texture of the Carrera track. And so this is a custom terminator. It's all printed at once with the different colors on a bamboo printer. And then of course this right here is a custom profile in order to not have a gap when I terminate it here. So color is a little bit off, but looks a hell of a lot better than it did before. So I'm working on those to see if I can get those for all the other turns if you have for radius 2 or 1 or 3 or whatever, where you might need that you don't have any gap. And that is the club track so far this season. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. We really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you at the finish line.